Hello, my name's Tom Whittaker. I'm a senior associate at independent UK law firm Burges Salmon. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to cover updates on AI and regulation in 2023. And I'll do that in two respects. First of all, by focusing on the EU, UK, and US. And then second of all, by looking at some of the overarching themes which are coming out around inquiries and investigations, international regulatory interoperability and political discussions, and then also on standards and practical resources which are being developed. So let's kick off with the first bit of looking between the EU, UK, and US. So in the EU in 2023, we've seen that the Parliament has adopted its position on the EU AI Act, making some significant changes to the drafts proposed by the EU Council in November 2022 and the EU Commission in April 2021. Now, whilst much of the detail is being refined and some of that is substantive, such as the definition of AI, there is a clear line of travel with all of this. The structure largely remains the same. The approach to enforcement, investigations, the potential for potentially significant fines, they're all there. The risk framework with prohibited, high risk, low risk, and then other, that's also there as well. So we're expecting the AI Act to be passed in late 2023 because there's clear political appetite for it, potentially earlier 2024, depending on where some of the negotiations land. And ultimately, there will then be a 2-year transition period after that. But the clear line is we know where it's going, and for many, that means they need to start engaging now. They'll have experience from GDPR about the long lead times to prepare for compliance, and they'll also likely have long lead product roadmaps as well, meaning that they need to get thinking about how the AI Act applies now so that they can take the necessary actions over the next couple of years before it starts to bite. There's also other things from the EU, such as the AI Liability Directive and the Product Liability Directive. So watch this space with updates on those because they do complement and reinforce the application of the AI Act. Then you've also had discussion this year from the Council of Europe, separate to the EU institutions, where they've been drafting a proposed convention on AI, which would be applicable to whichever states want to sign up for it. That's the EU and European side of things. In terms of the UK government published its white paper in March 2023, providing a pro-innovation framework to the regulation of AI within the UK. Clearly, it's going to be different from the EU. So there's a proposal that there will be no new AI-specific regulations, no new AI-specific regulator, and instead there will be existing regulators applying existing regulators for 5 currently non-statutory cross-sectoral principles to try and bring some coherence and consistency between how different regulators approach applying those principles and their respective regulations and regulatory remit. What we can expect now is that there will be the consultation has closed and we will start to see responses coming out from it. We've already seen a few regulators providing their consultation responses, largely positive about the UK's approach, but then providing some specific suggestions for how things should be improved and what needs to change in the future. And what we can expect in late 2023 is guidance from the key regulators, not defined, but that's the phrasing in the white paper, as to how the cross-sectoral principles will apply within their regulations and their regulatory remit. That may be slightly delayed, and we'll also be expecting other regulators to publish similar guidance in 2024 and beyond. So there's much there to watch this space. And also from the UK government, we can expect them to take a number of actions which were specified in the white paper around an AI regulation roadmap, around publishing a cross-sector, cross-economy AI risk register, and also publishing its proposals for central evaluation and monitoring functions too. So that was the UK. Moving to the US. At a federal level, there have been a number of initiatives for increased training and funding at federal level for the use, procurement, development, deployment of AI. However, there's no federal proposals for a cross-sectoral approach to AI-specific regulations or a specific regulator. And instead, what you've seen from the US federal government is that they've encouraged technology firms to be part of the conversation around voluntary codes and how to apply ethical principles in practice. We've also seen certain publications, for example, the National Institute for Science and Technology publishing a risk framework, and also the White House Bill of Rights. Although don't be confused by the phrase Bill of Rights, It's actually a non-statutory set of guidelines for federal use of AI, but it's showing that the federal level is engaging with the issues, the risks, the opportunities of AI. But where you can see a lot of activity is at state level. Various states are doing their own different things depending on where they see the risks and opportunities. So, for example, employment and recruitment is a particular hot topic across multiple states with different proposals at each different state level. The most well-known probably being the New York local law requiring third-party auditing of AI systems used within the employment and recruitment context. But you also see that AI regulations are potentially down the line in other areas, such as for automated decision-making, and in order to bring about other things, such as establishing AI offices within specific states. So there you have the US, the UK, and the EU. Now let's go on to the second point of what we've seen in 2023. So first of all, around inquiries. Well, there's a lot of political and regulator interest in the risks and opportunities of AI. So they've had you've seen in the US, a Senate committee on the judiciary launch its oversight of AI program. You've seen the Competition and Market Authority in the UK commence a review into large language models. And you've also seen in the UK, the Communications and Digital Committee inquiry into large language models. There is also a broader piece within the UK, which is ongoing, from the UK House of Commons Science and Technology Committee inquiry on AI governance, which in itself will look at the white paper and how AI is governed in the UK. So there are plenty of political investigations and inquiries and discussions on the topic of AI, which are all ongoing and may have an impact on how regulations are rolled out and how they apply in practice. Second thematic point coming from an international perspective is looking at the international regulatory interoperability of AI regulations. So the concern is that there will be multiple regulatory regimes, and so anyone who is operating across those different regimes or who uses third-party suppliers or systems which operate across those regimes will have an additional regulatory compliance burden, and they will have to ride all of those different regimes, which in itself may be prohibitive to innovation and incur additional cost and increase risk for those involved. So there is talk at international level about trying to have interoperability between those different regimes. At the G7, the technology ministers put out statements to say that they were in favour of further regulation of AI and international harmony around and interoperability around AI regulation. And you also see that different countries are taking their own stands and trying to encourage international discussion on AI regulation. So, for example, in November 2023, we can expect the UK to host the first global AI safety summit. And then finally, as well, in 2023, we've also seen a lot of standards either being published or ones which are currently in development. So from a technical perspective, operators, organizations and providers, they know how they should then implement different regulations or how they should implement best practice from a technical perspective. And then you've also seen a lot of development, practical resources. So for example, in the UK, the publication of the AI Standards Hub, which draws together various technical standards, reports, proposed regulations and initiatives, so that there's a better way of keeping track of everything that's going on. So in 2023, there's been a heck of a lot of activity, and I think it's fair to say a lot more activity than there has been in previous years. That line of travel is set to continue. 2024, we can expect big developments around the AI Act in the EU, around regulatory guidance about the white paper and its application in the UK, and then also in the US, where a number of these different regulations start to come into force and be enforced. So much of interest in 2023 and much to look forward to in 2024 around AI regulation.